Hi, welcome back to JA Career Success. This is going to be your sixth and final visit into the classroom. What we're going to do this time is we're going to jump back to what was session 4 in the guidebook, and it's all on soft skills and interviewing. So feel free to do it the way the book says if you want to. I'm going to talk through the way I adapt it and talk through how it is in the pamphlet. So just know that you can do it the way the book says if you'd like to, but this is how I choose to do it in the classroom. I just love the concept of transferable skills, and I really love trying to get the students to connect that what they're doing today can lead to their futures. And a lot of people say, well, how am I supposed to do an interview when I've never had any job experience if this is my first one? And so what we want to show to the students is that things they're doing today can transfer to their future careers. And so that's called a transferable skill. And how we're going to do that is by having the students take the soft skills assessment. And this is in the guide, but also in the kit. And the students are going to work through this worksheet, and they're going to ask themselves, is this a soft skill that is really a strength of mine, a weakness of mine, or is it something that I've never really thought about I need to consider more? If they say it's a strength, they are supposed to also provide evidence of that in this last column. So if they think teamwork is a strength of theirs, they need to give an example of a time in which they could showcase that. And hopefully you see the connection between that. If you're asked in an interview, you know, how do you work well? Do you work well on a team? You could say, yes, I work on a team. When I was on this sports team, I had the opportunity to work with other players, etc., and talk through it that way. So this is going to showcase what they could potentially say in an interview, or really shows that they have got that skill down. What I always like to do is read through these before I go in, and I always highlight something that I can work on myself. I always like to showcase to students that as adults, we still have things that we can improve and work on along the way. So I always like to bring in a personal example as well. Then you can talk about interview do's and don'ts. So obviously the entire program has led up now to the interview. Talk about the resume, the cover letter, and the digital profile from last time, and showcase how that is really their first impression, and now if you get to meet somebody face to face, that's going to be the interview. So how can you set yourself up for success in that? These interview do's and don'ts are a great starting point. I always like to ask the students, how many of you guys have ever had an interview? Have you ever heard of somebody that's had some interview bloopers, etc.? What questions do they have? What do they know about interviewing, etc.? And I usually let them lead the discussion, and then I look at this and say, okay, what maybe did we miss? So talking about some of those interview do's and don'ts. And then I jump in and I have them start doing the interviews. I talk a little bit about the importance of not answering questions in a yes or no fashion. Hopefully the interviewer is asking open-ended questions, but if they do ask a yes or no question, make sure to highlight to the students that they shouldn't just answer yes or no, but that they should elaborate on it a little bit more and ask and answer it in a little bit more depth. What you'll notice is that we have a list of common questions that high schoolers might experience or be able to answer. Feel free to use these interview questions or bring in some interview questions directly from your HR department. And if it's not confidential, use some of your own personal questions or processes that your company uses to, again, showcase that real-world experience. What I like to do is I like to use a variety of students, and I like to have them answer 3 questions. Some volunteers to choose to do more of an in-depth interview with one student, or they like to do a role play with a student or the teacher with like a good interview and a bad interview. Feel free to do whatever works best for you, but I have really found that this is a best practice in allowing a variety of students to participate, so it keeps it entertaining. But also, if you have one student that maybe isn't the strongest, you're not stuck with 10 minutes of that one specific student. So I normally find maybe 1 or 2 people raise their hand in the beginning, and as we get going, more and more students want to do it. So What I do is I ask for a volunteer, I have them come down, I have them sit in a chair. So while they're working on their self-assessment, I'm starting to kind of put a little staging area together. So if I have the opportunity for 2 chairs, I'll just do 2 chairs. If the desks are movable and you can do a little move, you know, like have a desk in between you, that's great too. But I literally start the interview from their desk. So I have them come in, I introduce myself, I have them shake their hand, look me in the eye, I offer them a chair, and then we sit down and we start the interview. So I do that beginning with each of the students, even though the students are only going to answer 3 questions. I always give the student the opportunity to name a specific position that they would like to be interviewing for, but if they don't know, I usually default to a cashier at a local grocery store. And so what I do is I ask 3 questions and I allow the student to answer them. And then at the end, I congratulate them. Hopefully it wasn't a complete train wreck. But what I always say is, okay, you guys, this student put themselves out there. They went out of their way, so we're going to be kind. But if we had the opportunity to coach this person in this interview, how would you coach them? What were some of the things that you noticed that were right on, and what were some of the things that maybe were things that we could work on? Usually the first person's maybe the most rocky just because they're like taking the chance of doing it the first time. So I use it as a little bit of a coaching session. I always try to find some affirming things to say, even if they didn't do it perfectly. I like to try to affirm something and also really showcase the constructive criticism. This is why we're practicing right now. So then I thank that student, I have them go, and I start with another student. It's pretty fast paced, and you have another student that comes in. Again, I greet them, I have them sit down, shake my hand, etc. And then I walk through the next 3 questions on my list. The other thing I really like to do is I like to pause, and I like to say at the end when I'm doing the coaching session, I like to say, why do employers ask this question? What are they really looking for? And depending on how the student answered, I might be able to say, okay, this is what I'm really trying to figure out when I ask that question. So everybody has different experience with interviewing. If you have the opportunity to do the mock interviews, it works really well. The way the book says to do it is to have the students pair up, which is okay, but I feel like having that large group discussion can be a little bit more productive with your time in the classroom. There are also these bookmarks that you can give out to the students. It does have 4 sample interview questions on here as well, but again, we just want to encourage the students to think about practicing with someone, practicing answering their own questions as they're driving in their car, as they're looking in the mirror, things like that. But the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more comfortable you're going to be. So feel free to share your personal experiences and highlight your experience with interviewing, and spend the last few minutes thanking the students for participating. There are certificates of achievement that if you want to, you can fill out and complete. You can hand them out like a little mini graduation. I have found that some students in this class actually want to keep these for a potential profile that they're building, snapshot. Some of them want them. The other thing I like to do at the very end is I encourage them to take all of their pieces, put it in here. I always tell them, I get it, you're probably going to throw it away, but I want to encourage you instead to throw it underneath your bed, put it on a bookshelf at home, and just tuck it away, because there's a lot of great information in here that we've gone through that when you're going to do a resume, or when you're going to fill out a scholarship application, or when you're going to go to your first interview, pull it back out and remind yourself of some of those soft skills and some of those tips and tricks that we've talked about, and have it available for you as you move into your future. I hope you've had a great time with this curriculum. I really appreciate your time in the classroom, and I'd love to have any feedback that you have on how we can make it even bigger and better.